video, I'm going to be covering one of the most overlooked keywords resellers forget to use in their listings. These are types of keywords that buyers are searching for, and when you can include these types of keywords, you're going to set yourself apart from your competition and start getting more views on your items, as well as bringing in more sales, because this will help you get your items in front of the right buyers. If you're new here, then welcome to the channel. My name is Lee Meyer. I'm a stay-at-home mom of 4, and I've made well over $100,000 flipping used clothes and other items on sites like eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. And now I'm on a mission to help you be able to reach $100,000 for yourself this year. To help you out, I've got a load of free goodies. You'll find them down here in the description below this video. This is where you're going to find my best brands list, the list of 150 brands that has led me to the $100,000 mark and beyond. You're also going to find a link to sign up for my free $100,000 reseller challenge. In that free challenge, I show you exactly how to hit $100,000 for yourself this year and how to do it in very minimal time. It's not about having to put in more time. It's not about having to work harder. And I show you exactly how in that challenge. In the challenge, you're also going to discover the very best things to be selling right now in today's market. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with the topic of this video. Now, I'm going to be covering in this video one of the most overlooked keywords. This is something that I missed out in my listings for the longest time. Buyers are shopping for these keywords that we're going to be talking about, and these are keywords that have to do with the fabric of items. Of course, you probably got denim down. Like, okay, I can check that one off the list, but there's so many other types of fabrics than that. Now, I do want to clarify that materials are a separate thing. That's usually what you can read off of a material tag. Fabrics are how those materials are put together. And so in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 10 of the most popular fabrics right now that buyers are searching for. When you can include these in with your listings, this is going to help get your items in front of the right buyers. It's also going to open you up to new sourcing opportunities, because a lot of these fabrics that we're going to be going through are what are considered premium fabrics, or fabrics that buyers are shopping for. And so it does open you up to so much more than just brands. I'm going to show you exactly what I mean in this video. So let's get started. All right, so this first fabric that we're going to be going over is what is called tapestry. This is a woven type of fabric. And so as we're going through this video, I'm going to be sharing with you some different brands. Some are more mainstream, some are lesser known. Some are really solid brands, but this one that you're looking at here is Coldwater Creek, which kind of a brand that I recommend using caution with. It definitely depends on the item. Now, this one is a small. Bigger sizes do tend to sell better for this brand, as well as just in general. Because of the look of this, because of that fabric of this item, this one actually sold for $45. So there is that Coldwater Creek tag, and then this is a vest. So there's a big picture of what that vest looks like, and then there's a little bit better, closer up look of what I mean when I say tapestry fabric. So keep your eye out for that type of fabric. It is super popular right now. This is kind of a no-name brand. This is another vest, and this one is called Counterparts. Here's what that vest looks like. So that is a floral tapestry. There's another closer look at what that tapestry weave looks like. That one sold for $57. But don't overlook other items, accessory items like purses. This is a no-name item, no brand item. That's actually a vintage item. There's a close-up of that tapestry fabric, and this is just a little floral tapestry purse. That one sold for $33. Over on eBay, again, another accessory type of item. This is a pair of shoes with that tapestry. That one sold for $30. So check out that floral tapestry on those shoes. This is a jacket from the brand Cabby. So you're looking at the brand tag there. And then here's what this one looks like. It says 70s floral tapestry boho coat. So definitely with that 70s look, there's a little bit closer look at that fabric. That one sold for almost $54. And then this is a jacket from Blair. You'll get to see what this looks like here in a second. There is that Blair tag. So this is more of what I would consider a lower end, but there's definitely items from this brand that are selling for a fair amount. This is a good example of one. So this, there's that tapestry weave right there, but this one actually has cats on it. So there's the front of the jacket. That one sold for $35. So that brand Blair does make tapestry jackets as well as other types of jackets, and they do really fall into different themes people are looking for, such as cats or dogs or dolphins, or there's completely random themes out there. This is another brand where you're going to see a lot of themes. This is called Sugar Street Weavers, and they are known for their tapestry fabric. Rather, I should say they were known for their tapestry fabric. This is a vintage brand that is no longer around. So there is the weave that's on the inside of that jacket. And this one actually has a garden theme on it. So I'm seeing maybe some lettuce and peas, and I'm not sure what else is on here, but that one sold for $90 for that tapestry jacket. Another type of fabric that's really popular right now is what is called burnout. So there's a couple of different ways you'll see this come into play. So let me quickly explain what burnout is. So burnout, by definition, is a item where there's a couple different types of materials in that. And then a heating technique is used to burn away one of those materials. And so with this, you can see it this way, where it's kind of almost a patchy look to an item. You can see that there at the lower section of this t-shirt. This is actually a t-shirt from Maurice's. Again, there's a close-up of what that looks like. That one sold for $25. Now, another way where you're going to see that burnout come into play is with velvet. So this is an Eileen Fisher item. So this is another example of where that material was burned away, and then you're left with kind of a sheer see-through where that was burned off. And so this is an Eileen Fisher item, very solid brand. There's the tag, and then that one sold for $57. This is another item. This one, actually, I do want to point out here, it is a Chico's item, but they did not put that in their title at all, because they did put velvet, burnout, maxi skirt, whimsy, goth, fairy grunge, boho, artsy. So they are really playing up to those keywords, because that is what buyers are searching for. And so with this item, there's that Chico's tag, but you can kind of see how it's a velvet, and then there's sheer that has been burned away to make that design. So that one sold for $46. This is another example of a burnout, but in a t-shirt, where it has that more variegated look. This is a vintage t-shirt. That one sold for $50. Another example of a burnout in a shirt. This one sold for $35 from Lucky Brand. These are actually a better example also from Lucky Brand, but you can see how it's a little bit lighter around the neckline here. That set of 4 sold for $50, and you're going to see that burnout in a lot of the Affliction brand shirts for both men and women. So you can see how it's a little bit lighter color. It's not an even tone all the way across that item. That one sold for $35, but definitely it does go with that brand quite well. Now this one is a Victoria's Secret item that you're looking at that is a gold tag. They did play up those keywords, style-based keywords, really well, in addition to that burnout. That one sold for $75. Here is what this dress looks like. So you can see that it's a little bit sheer where that has been burned away. We're going to talk about flocked here in a second, because they are very similar, flocked velvet. But before we do that, I do want to quickly mention my style poster. I did mention some of those keywords, those style-based keywords like whimsy goth that you just saw in that listing. And if you're interested in more of those style-based keywords, aesthetic keywords, that is another thing that buyers are really, really searching for right now. So I do cover 80 different keywords, style-based keywords on the poster that I'm going to link to over here. So I mentioned just a bit ago that flocked and burnout are very similar. You end up with a similar look at the end, but there are 2 different ways to create that look. So the burnout is burned away. Flocked is actually added to the fabric, and it can be difficult in some situations to determine which is which. And so that is okay to use both. So you're going to notice in the item that you're looking at here that they did use flocked as well as burnout. If you're confused on which one it is, it's likely that somebody who's shopping for this is maybe confused as well. And so they may use one term or the other term. Go ahead and put them both in if you're not quite sure. So this is that dress. You can see that it has that velvet. And I'll show you what actually flocked is. This is an item where, maybe it could go either way depending on how that was constructed. This is a Jones wear item. And this one is one that is for sure flocked. This is Bowden, so flocked meaning where those fibers were added on. And you can see here at the bottom of this picture, there's these black circles that are velvet. Those have been added on top of the fabric to better explain that. So if you get a look at this whole picture of this item, you can see how the majority is that solid gray background, and then those black dots have been added on top. That is flocked. So that one sold for $40. And then back to this Joneswear item real quick. So this one was listed for $235, but there was a best offer accepted on that for $68. I do have a video where I walk you through how to look up how much items sold for when a best offer was accepted. I'm going to link to that up here. All right, this next item is one that is for sure flocked. So this is a dress. Fortunately, there's not a brand tag with this, but you're seeing in the lower half of that dress, there's a velvet design that's kind of added on. If you see that it's added on, here's a little bit closer look of that. The best explanation that I can give is that if the majority of it is velvet, then it's probably burned away. If the lesser of it, the minority, in this case, like the lower half of that dress is velvet, then it's likely flocked. So that one sold for $40. They do have another fabric keyword in here that I do want to quickly point out, that is taffeta, and that is the material that you see there in the lower half of that dress. This is another flocked item over on Poshmark. This is a dress from Morgan & Co. The pictures are a little bit dark, but you can see that it's got a floral design where there is flocked velvet. That one sold for $80. This is a torrid dress, so you're seeing that the majority of it is not velvet, and then there's little bits here that make up that floral design that is velvet. So that is a really good example of it being flocked. There's that torrid tag. If you're looking for a tag picture, that one sold for $30. Here's one from International Concepts, INC, and this one has flocked velvet down the sleeves of this dress, of that blouse, and that one sold for $40. This next fabric is what is called Shammy. This is what you maybe dry off your car if you wash your car at home. And this one is one of those fabrics that I consider to be premium, or a really good indicator if you come across this fabric and you don't maybe recognize the brand, that there still could be a good market for it, that there could be a good value in that item. So that is a tip to be able to source more items that you might not otherwise source with this. So this is one from a brand that is called American Edition. So there's the tag. Oh, there we go. Made in the USA. This is a camo men's button-up shirt, and then that one sold for $36. With this chamois fabric, it is very soft, and it usually has a little bit of wear to it. This one is a St. John's Bay, so we are going to be looking at some St. John's items a little bit later on in this video, but this is a St. John's Bay, to clarify. Back there behind the tag, it does say chamois cloth. That one sold for $50 for what is usually kind of a lower value brand. This is a chamois button-up shirt. It's very popular to see this chamois style fabric used in these button-up shirts. This is from J. Crew. That one sold for $60. This one is Cabela's. This is always nice when they're nice enough to put the type of fabric on that. You're not always going to see that. But with this Cabela's Deerskin Soft Chamois, that's a common tag that you'll come across with this Cabela item. That one sold for $35. Now, I do want to take a second to invite you to join the Empowered Reseller membership program. This is where I'm personally able to answer questions, connect with members. I'm even even able to do things like store reviews, account reviews, listing reviews. You get access to a huge course master vault as well as a supportive community. It's where I'm doing live trainings each and every month, hanging out with my members. So down here in the description below this video, that's where you're going to find a link to be able to sign up for that membership program. And I can't wait to welcome you into our community soon. This next fabric that we're looking at is gauze. Now this one happens to have the word gauze in the brand name. This item, it's called Oh My Gauze, and this is selling pretty well. So with this one that you're looking at, it actually does have a little bit texture to that fabric, but all gauzes do not have that. It always will have kind of a more wrinkly look to that fabric. So that's one quick way to be able to identify gauze. That is a dress that's new with tags. Almost everything else that is in this video is in pre-owned condition, but that one sold for $30. This is a blouse from Rails, but you can see how it kind of has that wrinkly look to it. And with this one, that one sold for $45. There's the brand tag for those of you looking at that, but it does have a woven look to that material. So as I'm zoomed in here next to this tag, you should be able to see a little bit of that weave pattern. Here's another one from that Oh My Gauze brand that sold for $42. And you can see another clue that this is gauze is just how this folded fabric is here at the top. It's a little bit thicker. That is another indication that that is gauze that you're looking at. There's what that dress looks like. Again, $42. Over on eBay, this is a Coldwater Creek item. Get another brand to use caution with. I mentioned that earlier. And here's that gauzy fabric. You can see the lines in it, the kind of wrinkly look to that. That one sold for $40. There's a better picture of that one. So $40 for that. This is a brand that's called CP Shades. They do make a lot of linen items. This one does not happen to be linen, but it's actually cotton and it's that gauzy fabric. The tag at the neck is always very hard to read on this brand. And if you're able to find a material tag, it will be spelled out there. You can't find that on every single item though. So just know that if you come across an item like this, it could be this item because it's a little bit hard to read. So you can see it's white on white there at the neckline, but it does say CP Shades. That one sold for $55. This is another item from that same brand, Oh My Gauze, over here on eBay. That's a pair of pants. And that one sold for $34. Again, you're seeing a lot of the wrinkles there along that seam. That's just the look of the item. That's what it's made to look like. This next fabric is Sherpa. Now, this is really popular, especially when it comes to Sherpa lined items and Sherpa lined jackets. So what you're looking at is an item from Wilson's Leather. And there's what that jacket looks like. So you're seeing Sherpa trim around the neckline as well as the cuffs, and inside of that jacket is all Sherpa lined. That one sold for $70. But if you come across items, whatever brand it is, if it's Sherpa lined, buyers are usually paying more money. Those types of items will sell for more money than items that are not Sherpa lined. This one is a Wrangler men's jean jacket. So there is the inside of that. This is a really good example of what that Sherpa lining looks like. It does kind of separate like that. And this is a Wrangler tag there. And there's what that jean jacket looks like. That one sold for $90. Over on Poshmark, this is an example of a Levi's Sherpa lined jacket. So there is the lining on the inside. You can see that is the whole, inside of the jacket. That one sold for $55. Carhartt, you're going to see this in a lot of different Carhartt items, vests as well as jackets like this one. And then that one sold for $80. Again, that's something that people usually pay extra for. Now, I do have 4 more different fabrics that I'm going to be going through in this video, but there's so many more fabrics than that to know, as well as different types of prints, different types of finishes to those fabrics. And so I do have a brand new poster that specifically covers fabrics and prints. I guarantee that you will learn something new from this poster. And this is all geared around what buyers are actually shopping for. So I'm going to link to that resource over here. All right, this next fabric that we're looking at is what is called Moleskin. This is another fabric that if you come across and you maybe don't recognize the brand, just the item being this type of fabric, means that it may be a premium brand or an item that buyers are willing to pay more for. So with this moleskin, it's very soft as well as thick. It's a little bit hard to explain, but if you come across a pair of pants or a jacket and you're not sure what type of material that it is, there's a good chance, you know that it's not velvet, you know that it's not chamois, you know that it's not these other things. If you can rule out those other things, there's a really good chance that it is this moleskin. So you're seeing a lot of how this fabric wears here next to this tag. This is an Australian brand called RM Williams. You will come across items here in the US if you're a US seller, especially when it comes to their shoes. Their shoes are actually pretty popular in the US compared to their other clothing items, but this is a pair of moleskin pants, and then that one sold for $65. This is a snap shirt from a brand that's called Ironheart, and this one sold for $250. Not the best tag picture with this one, unfortunately, but that one is moleskin. Here's another moleskin item. This one's from Filson, but gives you another good idea of what that type of fabric looks like. It is very similar to the chamois in that it's very soft. Moleskin tends to be a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit more stiff just because of that thickness. So again, this is a Filson item that you're looking at, men's button-up shirt. That one sold for $90. This is another one from that brand, Ironheart. So there's a better picture of that Ironheart tag. There are a few different variations out there. Definitely a big name brand, big money brand, I should say. That one sold for $300. Now, if you're looking for other really solid brands when it comes to men's clothes, I do have a guide that specifically covers men's clothes. So I'm going to link to that over here. It has all of those tag photos done for you, research, all of that. This next item is another one with that moleskin fabric, but this is from the Gap. And then this is what the jacket looks like. And that one sold for $39. You're going to see this fabric in a lot of older items. It's still currently used, but you will see it in a lot of, more vintage era items. This is another vintage item, and this one happens to be from the brand Lee. So there's the tag there, and this is a button-up shirt. Button-up jacket. That one sold for $175, and that one had 4 bids on it. This next fabric that we're looking at, I did kind of lump these all together of tin cloth, oilcloth, and waxed canvas. Now those terms, there are different meanings for them for the general purpose of this video and for buyers who are out shopping for these types of items. Most people aren't going to know the distinction between those different terms. And so I would recommend just picking one of those, or maybe like tin cloth and waxed, and going with it. It's really about the water repellency of these items. It's just some different terms, some different meanings behind those, but it does have a very similar finish, and the ultimate end result is that water repellency. So this is a Filson item, and with these types of fabrics, this is very common to see these types of wrinkles. So if the item has been folded, for example, it's been creased down the leg of those pants, it looks like there's been some other wrinkles in there as well. You're going to see that show up as kind of a faded look to those items. That is a really good, indication that that is a tin cloth or oilcloth or waxed canvas item. The other way to be able to identify this, and I wish I could have you feel this for yourself, but it does have kind of a waxy, oily feel to it. It's one of those things that when you first pick up, you're going to go, oh, that's what it is. And I know the first time that I came across this, was an instant recognition of like, this is something special. This is something different. I don't know if I knew the term at that point, but at least, it's vastly different than any other material out there. So that one sold for almost $100, and there is that Filson tag there for you. You're going to see this type of material in hats as well. And so this is a hat that's called from a brand called the Outback, and this company does make items, but their hats are really popular. Again, it's all about that water repellency. That one sold for $35 plus shipping. This is one from Polo Ralph Lauren, so there's the tag there. What you're going to notice with this type of fabric is oftentimes it has just a slight bit of shine to it, and so you can kind of pick up on this, around those pockets, it looks like the light is reflecting a little bit, as that picture is being taken. So that one sold for $125. This is another example of a hat with that oilcloth. This is from Orvis. There's what that inside is. And that one sold for $50 plus shipping. And then this is a backpack. This one's from Duluth Trading Company. So you're seeing, again, those wrinkles showing up there in the fabric. That one sold for $40. Over on Poshmark, we got another bag. This is actually a brand that is called Frost River. This is definitely a bolo one to be aware of. So that is what their label looks like. And that one sold for $135. This is another really solid men's brand called Marine Layer, and this is their waxed canvas jacket. One sold for $90 on Poshmark. And then Barber. So that is a brand that makes a lot of these waxed jackets. And then there's what that looks like. That one sold for $55. And again, you're seeing a lot of those kind of wrinkles to that. That's just part of that fabric. This next fabric that we're looking at is velour. This is super popular right now. It's really, really trending, especially as a lot of Y2K types of styles are trending. If you're looking for other Y2K styles that are really popular right now as that nostalgia is boosting, I will link to another video up here to help you identify those types of items. So this is a label from Victoria's Secret called Victoria's Secret Country. You can't really see the velour well with this one. You can make it out a little bit on the straps there, but that one sold for $32 for that. Where velour is really popular right now is when it comes to track suits, track jackets, as well as track pants. This is a pair of pants from Juicy Couture. These sold for $118. I'll show you what those look like here in a second, but there is that brand tag, and here's what those pants look like. They got a little bit of bling there on the front. Those sold for $118. Now this is from Aeropostale, so there is the label there, and I do want to point out this is a set of the top as well as bottoms. But what I want to point out is the size on these. So this is extra small as well as a double extra small. And then that sold for $46. And then here's a little bit more closer up look of what that velour looks like. It definitely has a little bit of a sheen to it. It's longer fibers than velvet. And then this is a Lily Pulitzer set there. So that's the top as well as the pants. Was sold for $85 over on eBay. This is a Gloria Vanderbilt set of velour. So you can again see that velour fabric right there a little bit better. That one sold for $44 for that set. And then a niche. So anytime you come across these older Y2K, 90, 2000, early 2000s era items, these are going to sell for, a little bit more. There's so many brands like this that are really strong, that were really strong around that Y2K time. I do have another video I'm going to link to up here if that is something you're interested in, is learning about more Y2K brands like this. So this is a niche that you're looking at, and this is the top, the jacket, as well as the pants. It's for almost $100, like $97 for that. And then this is a Puma jacket. So there's the tag there. And this one is just the jacket. It is a double XL. And then that one sold for $40. This next fabric is tweed. And so this is really popular. Another one that is very, very trending. So this item that you're looking at, this is actually a vintage mini skirt. I'll show you what it looks like here in a second. But I do want to give you a really good close-up of what the fabric looks like, because it's definitely textured. It's definitely 3D. There's often, a lot of different colors mixed into those fibers. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of what tweed is. That's that skirt there. That mini skirt went for $66. One of the most common labels that you'll see when it comes to tweed is Harris Tweed. And this, you can kind of think of like a certification for a fabric. So this is just basically stamping that it is authentic, that it is hand woven. All of the Harris Tweed items are hand woven, by the way. But you will see other labels with this because this is just the fabric. It's not the brand of the item. So different brands will use this fabric, and you'll see oftentimes two labels in an item. uses the Harris tweed. So here's a close up of that fabric, and you can see the different colors that are mixed in there. You're also going to see some of these kind of like hair pieces off of that. That's just part of the fabric. So this one is a men's blazer. That one sold for $120. So here's one that has a really good example of two labels on it. So there's the Harris tweed. That is where that jacket opens up at the front. And then that one sold for $80. And I'll go ahead and show you there. This one also has an Orvis tag. That's at the typical place where you would find that tag at the back of the neck. And I am going to zoom in on that because you can see just all of the different hues that are put into that. There's blues, there's purples, there's grays, there's browns, all mixed in there. So $80 for that jacket. This is a set, a blazer as well as a mini skirt. It's from a brand called Endless Rose, but with a lot of these items, it is more about the fabric and the look versus just the brand. So this is a good example of that. Set sold for $72. And this is a tweed plaid. So you can see that how, kind of 3D that weave is on that tweed. Another thing that I do want to point out in this title here is some of the other keywords that they're using. For example, clueless, as well as Y2K and Mean Girls. So both of the Clueless and Mean Girls, those were both kind of around that Y2K era, movies from that era. And this one sold for $73. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but those are terms that buyers are shopping for. So I did go ahead and pull up just Clueless. I didn't pull up the Mean Girls to show you, but there are items that are selling, with that Mean Girls keyword just for the look of the item. So these are other Clueless items are selling that are also tweed. So I did put in tweed as well as clueless. And there's several items in here. I do have a price filter on this as well of, I think, a minimum of $30. But this gives you a good idea that there are people that are shopping for specifically that keyword and for, that look of items. And if you're looking for other keywords like that, like the Clueless and Mean Girls that have to do with a movie, I do go more in depth inside of my pop culture keywords guide. So I'm going to link to that over here, but there's so much more in that to be able to identify those different types of items that buyers are searching for right now. This next item is another tweed item, but this is from Goodfellow. I wanted to throw this one in because this is a brand from Target, men's brand. That one sold for $80 for that jacket. This is a blouse from Zara, and then that one sold for $40. And then this is one from St. John. So I mentioned that I was going to be showing a St. John item. So this is not St. John's Bay. This is St. John. This is a older version of their tag. There are many different versions of their tags out there, but this is definitely one of their older looks for that tag, St. John, and then it says 4 Saks Fifth Avenue. And this is a suit set. So this is a tweed jacket as well as a tweed skirt. That one sold for almost $400, $399. If you found this video helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up as well as consider subscribing to the channel. Now, a lot of fabrics that we talked about do tie in nicely to different aesthetics, the style clothes. And so I do have another video. I'm going to link to that up here. If you're interested in learning more about styles and we compare it with styles as well as fabrics, compare those different types of keywords together in your listings and the titles as well as the descriptions, that's really going to give you that boost in your views as well as your sales. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for today's video, and I will catch you in the next video soon.